much as possible if it is convenient for you. Fine. So we were discussing the modeling of different motors, and that we will proceed towards the control of the machine. So what we have discussed so far, that a generic per phase equivalent circuit, if you want to draw and write the equations for that. So whatever elements we are encountering in the electrical circuit, that we represent in this equivalent circuit. So we may have some resistance or leakage, then magnetizing and all that. And then quantities, when we are writing, we need to have reference of frame, or if it is in some other, let's say on the rotor, we need to refer it to the stator, which means we need to change the reference frame while mentioning that in the corresponding equation. So in general, we have seen that it can be represented like this. And the two reference frames, we have seen how it looks together and how one quantity can be transformed to another, and I mean in other reference frame, and the if quantity is known in the other reference frame, how it can be transformed to the first one. So we are calling the stator and rotor equations in their native reference frames. This is what we have done. Now we try to do the transformations. What do we mean by referring to another reference frame, or what is the meaning of transformation to another reference frame? And what we have seen, that we are only relating the two projections on the reference frames. So let us say if alpha s, beta s are the quantities in the stator reference frame, is alpha, is beta for the stator current vector, and is alpha r, is beta r, these are the components in the rotor reference frame, then how to equate these? And that is the meaning of transformation. Obviously, these two are not same, which we can see from the figure itself. So this is how we can equate the components by simple right angle triangle equations, and then that we can write in a little more compact form in terms of matrix, so which eventually we can represent in terms of vector. So any vector, if it is getting transformed, let's say is vector is getting transformed to another reference frame, rotor reference frame, so we can simply multiply this unit vector e raised to power minus j epsilon with that vector, where epsilon is the angle between the native and new reference frame in the counterclockwise direction. So direction is very important whenever we are dealing with vectors. So then if we have to do the reverse transformation, we simply need to flip this. So e raised to power j omega on the other side. So what it means, that your angle has basically reversed. So similar thing we can do for the rotor current, and then we can represent the quantities in whichever reference frame we want to represent. So that is how we can write our equations. And here all the angles and quantities we say that we are kind of aware about. So epsilon is nothing if we know the rotor speed. So this is our epsilon. And then the other quantities we can measure and we can represent like that. So this is generic stator and rotor equation for any electrical machine which is symmetrical in nature. That means cylindrical rotor, where the inductance is not a function of theta. So this is not there. So then this is true, and then this we can use for analysis of machines such as PMSM or squirrel cage induction motor or wound rotor induction motor. So these kind of machines we can analyze with this equation. So now we try to see how the permanent magnet synchronous motor can be analyzed using these equations. So first thing what we have with the permanent magnet synchronous motor is that on the rotor side, we do not have circuit. We have actually magnets. So we understood that a magnet can be represented by a constant current in a coil. So similar to this magnet, how it has two poles, north and south, this will also have two poles, and the flux lines will be moving in this. So then we can represent the rotor magnets with fictitious three-phase winding, where the current directions and current magnitude we can keep such that the instantaneous sum of the current, scalar sum of the current, is 0. So what we do, basically we keep some IF current on the the R axis, then minus IF by 2 along the Y axis, and minus IF by 2 along the B axis. And this is all in the rotor reference frame. So this is all rotating with omega R. So then if we try to compute the rotor current vector, so then we can see that it is actually aligned along the alpha R axis, and it is having magnitude of 3 by 2 IF. So far we have not seen what is the magnitude of IF, but by experience we can say that IF will be dependent on the size and type of magnet. So this we can say by experience. If magnet is very strong, we will have high value of IF and all that. We can relate that. But what is the value? This we have not seen so far. Now we try to use those equations which we have derived for general machines, and what we find that the stator equation, we can insert our rotor current what we have figured out, and we can find a equation for the stator circuit. But the rotor circuit actually has no role to play in the for the permanent magnet synchronous machine, because actually there are no windings, there are no current flowing in the rotor windings. So this we can ignore, and simply by using the stator equation we can define the electrical characteristic of our permanent magnet synchronous motor. So what do I mean by electrical characteristic is that if you write the alpha beta equations, so you can analyze that if you are feeding any particular sinusoidal voltage along the alpha and beta axis, how your current is going to be, given that you are rotating at a particular omega. So in other words, if I say that this term which is coming on account of the permanent magnet, this is basically your kind of back EMF, which is sinusoidal in nature because of sin epsilon cos epsilon coming over there. Now if you want to compute, so we have related another constant term which is combination of this 3 by 2 times of IFLM as Ke. So this Ke can be computed very easily if we know the omega at which the machine is rotating. So simply connect the motor with any prime mover and do not excite the motor. So simply rotate the machine, and then whatever terminal voltage you are getting because of this, that represents your back EMF, EB. Now this EB can be related with K omega into sin epsilon or cos epsilon, depending on which axis you are talking about. So then if we know the omega, we can very well know what is our constant Ke. So this is the way how you can understand about the machine. So all these quantities are now well known. We know Rs, Ls, I alpha, Ke, omega, sin epsilon, all these quantities are now known. Understanding my point? Any confusion up to this? Any confusion?
No, sir.
No.
So then we can know each and everything about these equations or this model what we are given. Now if someone says that we have a permanent magnet synchronous motor which has Ke constant given, Rs value given, Ls value given, so yes, then we can do the complete simulation of the permanent magnet synchronous motor, the electrical part, using these equations. Is that clear? So this is what we have drawn in the equivalent circuit also. So Ke basically gives what is the back EMF which is going to come along the alpha and beta axis, and then we know the elements Rs, Ls. So then we can very well tell what is the current flowing in the circuit. Fine. Now this is what we say that we have modeled our PMSM in the stationary reference frame, in the stator alpha beta reference frame. Now we plan to use some controllers which we have used for our DC motor also. And like we have proportional integrator, PID, all these controllers available for the feedback control. And we know by our experience that these are all very useful for DC quantities, but the moment we want to use these for AC quantities, there is huge error caused by these controllers. Steady state error and lot of these issues may come up. So what we try to do, we mathematically try to see if these quantities can be visualized as DC quantities. And then we can use our regular controllers to control that in that particular domain or in that particular reference frame, and then we come back to our regular reference frame. So it is nothing but mathematically we are going from one place to another place to help our controller in controlling and visualizing things properly. And then we are coming back to our original reference frame where we are actually running the motor. So I will come back to that, how we are doing and when we need to transform from one to another, and then this synchronous to stationary. This we will see later, but let us first understand that how this is being done, how the transformation is being done. So we saw last time that it is similar to or analogous to when we are seeing any person who is sitting in train. So if we are stationary at ground, with respect to us, that person would be moving at certain speed v. But if let us say we go and sit in the same train, then that person would be stationary with respect to ourselves, unless some person is habitual of running in the train, so that we cannot help. So then with respect to us, that person is stationary. Now this same analogy we are trying to put in the reference frame transformation also. We have a stationary reference frame alpha beta, alpha s, beta s. In that the quantity is moving at synchronous speed, this current vector. Now if we go and sit on a reference frame which is also moving with same synchronous speed omega s, then the is, the current vector, will look stationary with respect to new reference frame. So what is the meaning of looking stationary? Simple meaning is that when you talk about the projections, let us say this current vector, what it is making with different axes, let's say first we talk about alpha beta. So this, as it is rotating, your projection along alpha s and beta s will be changing. And that is what gives the sinusoidal waveform. Whereas if you sit in the DQ domain or DQ reference frame, these projections now which are there along the D and Q axis will be fixed. These are not going to change, and that is where we say that we are seeing the quantity as DC quantity, because these components ISD, ISQ are fixed in this reference frame. It is not changing. Understanding my point? Now, the transformation is simple. Similar to how we have done for the rotor reference frame, similar thing we can do over here. If we know the quantity in the alpha beta reference frame, we can simply multiply by this unit vector e raised to power minus j omega, sorry, j rho, and then this will represent the vector in the DQ reference frame, where rho is the angle between the stationary or the native reference frame and the new reference frame, which is synchronously revolving. So this is how we can transform the vector from one reference frame to another reference frame. And we can do the reverse also. So if we know the quantity in DQ reference frame, then we can come back to our original reference frame by multiplying the vector again in the reverse direction. So now it should be e raised to power j rho. So this is clear, right? Any confusion in this? Anybody having any confusion? Fine, right? This is simple. Now, the question is, when we are transforming to DQ reference frame, See, this dq is making some angle with this vector, let's say theta. Now you can have any value of theta. For example, your d can be anywhere. Theta could be anything between 0 and 360 degree. Where do we locate our dq? This is the question. Understanding my point? What should be this theta value? And it will change a lot of things, because with theta your projection will change. Let us say now you are at this theta equal to some 30 degree, you will be making some projection ISD ISQ. But if you make theta equal to 60 degree, let's say you make it something like this, then your projections have changed. Whatever it is, it will remain fixed for throughout the rotation, but it is changing. Now which theta we should choose? That is the question. How do we decide where our dq is going to lie? Dq could be anywhere. Anything by experience you can tell? Anything? So that is where actually the name d and q axis comes into place. Why we are calling it d axis? Why we are calling it q axis? The meaning of d is direct axis and q is the quadrature perpendicular to that. So direct axis from our DC motor reference, what we call wherever the flux is flowing in along whichever axis, let's say this north south, this axis is called your D axis. Understanding my point? So D must be oriented along your flux. So this is also called your flux axis. So any current which is coming along this D axis will actually represent your magnetizing current or equivalent to that. Is that clear? Magnetizing current or field current or anything you want to call. Whichever current component comes along D. That is the meaning of direct axis. And quadrature is the perpendicular axis. So now it will be coming out of the paper. Understanding my point? So perpendicular means now this represents the voltage axis. Understanding my point? And of course, by our experience and knowledge, we know that Q must be leading D by 90 degree. So that is why we say DQ. Correct? So your flux vector will be oriented along or should be oriented along this D axis. And your voltage vector should be oriented along the Q axis. Should be. It is not that somebody is forcefully asking you to do, but that is the general convention you should have. Even if you have any other axis, let's say D not along F, that is also fine. It will also give you some transformation in the synchronous reference frame. That is fine. There is no problem. But to say like you are going into DQ reference frame, this is the meaning that you are orienting your flux along the D axis and you are orienting your flux, this voltage along the Q axis. Is that clear? Now, for the permanent magnet synchronous motor, we have our flux generated by the rotor. I mean the permanent magnets on the rotor. Clear, right? Something like this, let us say these rotors are, the magnets are located. And what we have seen that it equivalently give rise to a current IR, which is rotating with the rotor speed. So in case of PMSM, it is also synchronous speed, omega s. Now we can say that our flux will be oriented along this current vector IR. isn't it? So if this is our IR, which is also the flux axis, because that is what our rotor is doing, or the permanent magnets on the rotor are doing. They are basically responsible for whatever flux we have in the machine or the system. We are not dependent on any other excitation or any other thing. So then our D and Q must be oriented like this. D must be oriented along this flux axis or the rotor current axis, and Q must be oriented perpendicular to that. Then wherever our stator current comes, that is the angle what it will be forming. Understanding my point? Understanding my point, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
then you also understand that this angle epsilon what we have shown earlier, and now this new angle for dq rho what we are discussing now, these both are equal for the PMSM motor. So these both are nothing but omega s into dt, the integral of that. Clear? So our rotor current what we have discussed as J epsilon in the stator reference frame, this can also be represented as, also is, that is the same thing, e raised to power j rho. So rho and the rho and epsilon, these are interchangeable for the PMSM motor. This is clear, right? Don't confuse why sometimes we are having rho, why sometimes we are having epsilon. When we go for a different motor, this difference will be clear. But for permanent magnet synchronous motor, these two angles are same, exactly the same. One represents your angle at which the rotor is rotating, another represents your angle at which your synchronous reference frame is rotating. And for the case of PMSM, these two are same because your rotor is rotating at synchronous speed. This point is clear, right? There is no confusion in that.
So for PMSM, voltage at Q quantity will not be there, no?
Which quantity?
Voltage. In the previous case, we have put the voltage on Q axis, but for PMSM there it will be not there, no?
No, why it won't be there?
So because of voltage there is a generation of flux, so that's why we put on 90 degrees.
Yeah, so
In PMSM there is no there is a permanent magnet, so the flux is only because of permanent magnet only.
that is fine, but what it has to do with the Q axis voltage?
So it will not be there, means I want to say that.
No, I mean just because flux is there, so it should not be there.
So flux is in permanent magnet, flux is not because of voltage, it's because of
It is not
permanent.
because of voltage.
So in
So
previous case, why there is a voltage?
yes. So what is the problem with that? In DC motor also, just a second. Yeah. So in DC motor also, you have two windings, right?
So
You have some field winding flowing, some voltage given over here. Still you provide this armature voltage. Why? Why do you provide armature voltage over here? Understanding my point? See, one current is responsible for your flux, that is true. But you also need something on the perpendicular axis so that you can generate torque. Torque is always dependent on two components which are orthogonal.
yes, sir.
So although there is flux because of the permanent magnet on the D axis, still you need something on the Q axis for the torque generation.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So whether you understand in terms of, let's say, rotor or stator flux, or you understand in terms of rotor flux and stator current, anything you can take and you can realize the same thing, that you need two things, two quantities, one along the D axis, another along the Q axis, or one along the flux line or another along the quadrature axis.
Yes, sir. Got it, sir.
So any confusion in this? Anybody? Now, when we have these things given, so we have seen our stator current, how it is represented, and how our rotor current is represented. So we can bring back those equations, whatever we have written, the stator equation, and then we can try to do the transformation to DQ reference frame. So let me write it. And for clarity, I will use alpha beta if it is the equation in alpha beta reference frame. So IS alpha beta RS Okay, so here we have seen that these things are gone and we have only this constant Ke times of e raised to power j omega. That is what we say, K into omega. Now I will use rho over here, right? Because rho and epsilon, these two are same. So now onwards I will have only one angle, rho. Understanding my point? Any confusion here? Fine. This equation is fine, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is our stationary reference frame model. Now, what we are trying to say that we are going into DQ reference frame. So we know that any quantity, let's say if we want to represent in DQ domain, we will multiply this unit vector and transform it to the other reference frame. Now reverse is also true. If we know the quantity in alpha beta domain, we can represent the DQ domain quantity in terms of that. So this can be written as this is fine. Any problem in this? Simply whatever alpha beta quantities are there, we replace with this kind of transformation or this kind of replacement with for the quantity. So this equation can be written as understanding my point? Any confusion? See, only we need to replace whichever quantity is in the alpha beta reference frame. That's all. Clear, right? Now, if you expand these terms, particularly this derivative term, here we have two components inside there. So what it will do, first you can have this derivative of the current. And second, you can have the derivative of this unit vector. So this will be j omega s and plus this constant term. Understanding my point? This equation, any confusion in this? Now notice that just because you had this derivative term coming over there because of the inductance, stator inductance, you have got two terms instead of one, what you were getting in the alpha beta or stationary reference frame. Is that clear? Now this e raised to the power j omega, this can be removed from the left hand and right hand sides. So simply you can knock it off. Clear? Now whatever is remaining is your equation in the dq domain. All the quantities are transformed to dq domain. Getting my point? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good. I think one term I have missed out over here. I think perhaps a j is there. Yes, this j I have missed out. Yeah, so here it should be j times k into omega into, yes. Now this is correct. Fine. Any confusion in this? This is your equation in the DQ reference frame or synchronous reference frame, whatever you want to call it. But you have to ensure when you are telling that this is synchronous reference frame, then which reference frame? This is the reference frame where your D is aligned along the rotor flux axis. This is what you have ensured, and then only you have got a simplified form of this. Understanding my point? Is that clear? Now, here if you notice, when we had the alpha beta equation or stationary reference frame, we had only three terms because of resistance, then inductance, and then the speed. Now here we are having this additional term. This is called your cross coupling term. Why it is called cross coupling term? Let me write the equations for D and Q separately, then you will understand that thing. So simply any vector in DQ is written as VSD plus JVSQ. This is how I will represent every vector over here. So what I will write that VSD will be equal to ISDRS LS ddt of ISD. Now these are not vectors, these are the components along the D and Q axis. And then you will have minus and then if you write the VSQ, seeing this, what is the meaning of cross coupling? You never saw any alpha component appearing in the beta equation. This you never saw, or any beta component appearing in the alpha equation. This also you never saw in the stationary reference frame, because we say that these two components are orthogonal and that is why there is no coupling between the two. But the moment we go for synchronous reference frame, we have cross coupling between the D and Q axis. The Q current is appearing in the D equation and the D current is appearing in the Q equation. Getting my point? This is happening only because of the transformation what you are having in the synchronous reference frame. Is that clear? Clear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So even if you do not give any current on the D axis side, you are only giving voltage, sorry, you do not give any voltage on the D axis side and you give voltage on the Q axis side, still you will have some current flowing on the D axis. That is the meaning of cross coupling. This is some kind of EMF generated by the Q axis on the D axis. Even if you make VSD equal to 0, your D axis will see some current on account of the Q axis quantities and vice versa. This is the meaning of cross coupling. So if you represent this in terms of equivalent circuit, what you will find for the D axis, if you are drawing, there is a dependent voltage source which is dependent on what? Your ISQ current. So basically this is omega s ls ISQ. This is your VSD. And here you have a dependent voltage source because of your D axis, omega s ls is D. And then your back EMF. Getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Now you notice another important thing is that when you have done this synchronous reference frame transformation, your back EMF is only coming along the Q axis. It is not appearing in the D equation. And the reason is same. When you have oriented your flux along the D axis, obviously the whole voltage induced by that flux will go along the other axis, the Q axis, perpendicular to that. Is that clear? This is correct, right? Any confusion in that?
Yes.
No, sir.
No confusion, right? So this is another. Now, if you have DQ or reference frame such that your D is not oriented along the flux axis, if you have any other synchronous reference frame, DQ, where D is not along the flux, you will see this voltage coming on both the axes. Understanding my point? This is the difference you will find if you go for any other reference frame other than D oriented along the flux axis. This difference you will straight away find. Clear? Clear, right?
Yes, sir.
So that is why we simplify our things by having our D axis along the flux. And then we have the induced EMF only along the Q axis. So a lot of terms are reduced. We have a simplified equation. But there is a cross coupling between the D and Q axis. This we must notice. And this is true for any circuit, not just motor. You take any front end or grid connected converter, you have the inductor connected between the grid and the converter. Again, this cross coupling term will appear there also. So this is in general true. If you have any RL circuit or inductive circuit, you are trying to transform from stationary to synchronous reference frame, you will get the cross coupling term in addition to whatever you have in the stationary reference frame. This general understanding is there. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So then,
Yes, sir.
this is how we say that we have modeled our machine in the DQ domain or the synchronous reference frame, where our D axis is aligned along the flux, the rotor flux particularly. We specify what we are aligning along. So anywhere when you say that I have modeled my machine in synchronous reference frame, the first question anybody will ask is which synchronous reference frame? Then you can say synchronous reference frame where my D axis is along the rotor flux. Otherwise, this equation will not be valid. This is not any general synchronous reference frame. It is synchronous reference frame where d axis is along the flux axis. Good. So now we have understood that how to model our motor. The electrical part we have done. Now the mechanical part we need to understand. Now the first thing in the mechanical part we have to do is to define torque. Then only we can correlate between our electrical quantity and our electrical quantity. So we have seen many definitions of torque. Sometimes the magnetizing flux vector cross the rotor current vector. This we have seen for the induction motor. This is true in general also. Now another way to represent this torque equation could be only magnitude if I am talking about. So I will take the magnitude of this. You can also represent the torque in terms of your stator and rotor currents as this. So here now you will have the magnetizing flux coming, and then you will have IS in the alpha beta reference frame. And then your rotor. So basically product. This is when you take the components, it is equivalent to taking the cross product. ISR again in the alpha beta reference frame, conjugate of that. This IM is not your magnetizing current. This is your imaginary part. Imaginary part of this. This is not your magnetizing current. Don't confuse with that. Clear? So this is how you can represent torque in terms of the rotor and stator currents. This you can interchange this also. Okay, so now what we have done, we have kept the IS here and then conjugate of IR. So let us represent our IS and IR in whatever terms we have discussed, right? So LM and then imaginary part of. Here you can always write IS alpha beta can be written as dq e raised to power 0. Because we know the quantities, we have done the modeling in dq reference frame, that's why I am trying to go there. Now this rotor current, we have seen that it is nothing but 3/2 times of, or let it be like this. So then it will come back to our fine. There is another simpler way to do this also. This will become little lengthy, so let's have that. Let's leave it in alpha beta, and what we do, we basically represent our IR in dq domain. So we know that IR vector is along the d axis, so this is simple to do. This is the rho angle, and this is where our IR is. So IR vector simply we can write, because we know this in the alpha beta domain, so we can simply write this as e raised to power 0. So we are coming back and then taking the conjugate of that. So this is simpler. Now this our IR is nothing but the vector and then taking along the, transform to the dq domain. So conjugate basically means your j will become minus j. So you can bring it on the other side. And this IR vector, we have seen that it is nothing but 3/2 times of IF along this axis itself. So then this simplifies a lot of things. What we have now, this is nothing but our IS dq. And so our things are much more simplified. Now when we are saying the imaginary part of this is basically constant, which can be taken out. IS dq is nothing but ISD plus JISQ. So our imaginary part contains only this ISQ. There is nothing related to D. the d-axis current. So torque can be written simply by correct. So here we have only one quantity, the ISQ, and obviously we know because d-axis flux is maintained by the rotor current or the rotor magnets. So any d-axis component of the stator current should not contribute in that flux. So we can have the component of current along the q axis hello. Sir, I'm in a class actually. I will call you 17 minutes. Okay, sir. Okay, sorry for the disturbance. Yeah. Okay, so this is clear, right? Okay, maybe I missed the flow a little bit because of this couple of phone calls. Okay, let me just go back and say what I was trying to make here. So we have the torque equation given like this. Okay. For the induction motor, we have seen that, of course, this is some cross product of the flux and the rotor current. That we know, right? This point is clear. Now, this is true for any other general motor also, whether it is DC motor or induction motor or PMSM motor, anything. So it is basically cross product of two orthogonal quantities, whether you call it flux or you call it current and flux, anything you may take. These two orthogonal quantities interacting, and that is what gives rise to the torque. So if you go on deriving, we can come to I'm not getting into the details of this derivation, but it can be represented in terms of the current vectors on the stator and rotor axis, on the stator and rotor sides as this equation. So this says like 2 by 3 P by 2 Lm is the magnetizing inductance and imaginary part of this product where we are taking the conjugate of the IR. Now, when we take conjugate, what we do basically that it is nothing. We replace j with minus j. That is the meaning of conjugate. Now, what we did, we represented our IR vector, which was again in the stationary reference frame, alpha beta, to dq reference frame, IR e raised to the power j rho. Simple thing we have done. Now IR vector, we know it is already along the d axis, nothing else is there. So it can be written as 3 by 2 times of IF. This is clear, right? There is no confusion. And e raised to the power minus j rho gets multiplied with your stator current in the alpha beta domain. So this is nothing but your transformation from alpha beta to dq. This is what is doing over here. So our equation becomes very convenient in terms of the d and q axis components, where ISdq is represented as this ISd plus JISq. Now, because we are interested only in the imaginary component, which is our useful torque, so that is giving us this torque equation, which is in terms of ISq alone. There is no part of ISd. Is that clear? Clear or any confusion, Naveen? Any confusion? Okay, so the meaning of this equation is that I have again, whatever quantities are there apart from ISQ, those are on account of the magnets and all. So I have just written as another constant KT, which is basically a constant responsible for the per unit torque. So then it is getting multiplied by only ISQ, which means what? That in this DQ reference frame in which we have defined our quantities, it is only the Q component which is responsible for our torque generation. Understanding my point? So if we want to control our torque, what we need to do, we need to only control our ISQ. That's all, nothing else. So then the control becomes very similar to how we see for the DC motor. In DC motor, what we have, for separately excited at least, we have field winding and some current flowing along that. So our flux is maintained. There is no issue in that. Then apart from that, it is only the armature current which we control in order to have a command over the torque. Understanding my point? So in this way, we have kind of figured out two components of current which are responsible for different quantities. ISQ is responsible for torque and ISD is responsible for the flux, because these are coming along the orthogonal axis. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Now
sir.
the question, because the flux is maintained by the rotor magnet, then what is the use of ISD? Isn't it? Is it not the obvious question? If we have magnets, what do we do with ISD?
Yes, sir.
So that is where when we are controlling, what we do, we keep our ISD equal to 0 through control. If you are running your machine without control, this you cannot ensure. But when you are running your motor with control, then you can ensure that your D-axis current is not there, because all your flux is maintained by your rotor magnet. So this is actually not necessary. So what will happen? If you again see the phasor diagram, how it will look like. Your current, stator current, will be fully oriented along this Q axis. This will be your stator current. Understanding my point? Here we will not have any component of current, stator current. Correct? This point is clear, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is what we do in control. This is what we call as vector control. We are forcing our current vector along this axis because we know that this is fulfilled by our rotor magnets. So we need not have any extra component. We can have component of current only along the Q axis. And that is all is sufficient for our machine control, generating any torque, doing any other activity there, whether speed control or position control. It is this current along the Q axis which will do our job. Other things are taken care by the magnets. Fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Understood? Satyaprakash, this thing is clear now. Why we have the excitation on the Q axis or
Yes,
D
sir.
axis?
Yes, yes.
So ultimately what we want, we have some flux along the D axis. We need not worry. What we want to have a fixed amount of current on the Q axis alone. That's all. That will do our job. And that is what the torque equation suggests, that there is no role for ISD in the torque equation. KT times of ISQ. This is why we have derived in the DQ domain, so that we can be very clear which one is the current component which we want to have under our control, which will give us a fixed or defined value of torque. And once your torque is defined, our mechanical equation can be very easily written and can be put under the control. So nothing but J times of d omega by dt is kt times of ISQ, which is your electromagnetic torque, minus your load torque and minus some frictional component. This is the simple equation, mechanical equation for your motor. So electrical equations we have seen, and now the mechanical equation also we can write. And this has input current as ISQ. In DC machine we had I armature. So lot of correlation you can have from one to another. Only thing you have to keep in mind over here that this quantity omega m, this is mechanical speed. So you need to correlate your electrical speed with your mechanical speed. This additional thing you need to do, where P is the number of poles. Is that clear? So these four equations together, the two which we have given for electrical, these two equations, 1, 2, then third mechanical equation, okay, where is that? Fine. Yeah. Third, this mechanical equation, and fourth, this equation. These four equations define your model for the permanent magnet synchronous motor in DQ domain or synchronously revolving reference frame. Now we have to do the control for this model. Physically, we have not changed anything in the motor. It is only for our controller that we have transformed it to such a reference where we know exactly what we need to control in order to get a particular torque. That is our only objective. So we will continue from this in the next session at 2 p.m. So then we can discuss further. So meanwhile, once you get chance, you just revise the controllers, whatever we have discussed, and then we can complete that section. Okay, any quick questions if you have, you may ask.